Hey everyone, welcome back to Motor Psychology from wherever you may be watching in the world. My name's Jonathan. If you're a new viewer, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back and thanks so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Seems like I've been spending a lot of time underneath this Corvette lately. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing the final metal preparation and repaint, refurb of the lower right control arm of this Corvette. I'm going to take the rust and the old paint down to the bare metal, then I'm going to rebuild it back up again. I'm also getting it ready so that I can press on new bushings and install a new ball joint and a new little bumper on that. So stick around, enjoy the video. I'm going to be using my air-powered angle grinder plus an electrical angle grinder with various combinations of wire brushes and sanding discs to get the surface rust and old paint off of this control arm. This video is at 7 times normal speed, so what you're seeing is the work being done 7 times faster than real speed. But I wanted to keep this in the video so that you can see the type of work that is involved in taking a relatively decent control arm, which was old, dirty, and greasy, getting it down to the bare metal, which involves taking off the surface rust and whatever existing paint was on there. So this process does work. It does take some time and some focus, but when you consider what you're seeing is 7 times the real speed, it really doesn't take that much work and that much effort to get all the old paint and all the old crap off and get the metal ready for priming. So it's time well spent, and it really wasn't that bad to make it through this process at all. Here you see me working on the cross shaft as well, and the cross shaft wasn't really too bad, and I was surprised how nice that it turned out. So as I'm working on this, I'm envisioning what the final product is going to look like, and that usually keeps me motivated and engaged in what I'm doing. So it's kind of like dentistry, where you take care of a filling, which is breaking down the parts and cleaning out all the decay, and then using some creativity and innovation to rebuild the tooth and get it back to normal. So when I look at something like this project with the control arm, it's the same thing. Let's get rid of all the old stuff first, let's have a look at it, and then let's be creative and rebuild it back to as close as new as possible. And those are the things that I think about as I work through these type of projects. Okay, this is starting to come down to bare metal. This is almost down. This needs a little bit of a cleaning in a few more areas with the wire brush. And it will be ready to prime and paint. It's quite the transition. That's just a little bit of a close-up of the almost final product, so it's come a long way. These are the bushings that I'm going to be putting in, and they're poly bushings. And if you haven't done this before, you have to take this kind of metal sheath off, which is what you see inside there. So I'm going to try and get that off and then clean this up a little bit more. To do this, it was really just a lot of bending, prying, pulling and twisting, and I used some silicone lubricant. You could use WD-40 or anything like that, just to give it some less friction inside of that and allow you to turn it better to eventually get it off the cross shaft. So it wasn't really that hard, didn't really take that much time, but needs to come off so that you can press on the new bushings. That's off. Looks good. Now to work on the next one. Just repeating the same process here, and you know, that cross shaft is actually a really good solid piece of metal, so it's pretty impressive, and I'm glad that I'm saving it and restoring it. It certainly is a lot of turning and twisting to gradually get that old bushing sleeve off that cross shaft. That one's off. I really didn't have a plan here. I just thought it was a good idea to use the air blower to blow off some of the rust dust that was on these parts and any other debris that was hanging around and getting in the way. So it was a pretty effective way to get some of the loose dust blown out of the way and getting me ready for the next phase in this restoration. Take the rust off the end here. Once again, this is at 7 times normal speed. It's just more cleaning and getting the surfaces prepared and restored as much as possible. So you just have to be persistent. Sometimes it seems that it never ends, but you know, you just have to keep at it and it eventually gets done and you can move on to the next step. So the end results are what keeps me engaged and motivated, and it's certainly worth the effort, and I'm just happy that I have the materials and the parts of this Corvette to work on and get things looking as new as possible. So I'm working on some washers here. I'm not too sure if I'm going to keep those or not, or buy brand new ones. There's a high percentage I'm going to buy brand new washers instead of keeping those, though. Like I said, I still may buy some new ones. I don't know. Just going to put these guys back together so I don't lose them. This guy's going here. Just keep them on here for now. Like that with the bushings on. And it'll be just a matter of pressing the bushings on. Before I do that, I'm going to paint it. I think I'm going to paint this kind of like a nice silver color and this a black color. The old casing and sleeve, recyclable. Just wiping this down with acetone before I paint. It's definitely important to get all the dust and any residue grease or oils off of these parts. So what I found is using acetone is pretty good. It goes on quite well, cleans the dirt and dust off, and then dries super fast. and very clean with no additional residue. So that product works well for this type of job. There's the unfortunate Corvette in the driveway as we get this thing ready to be back on the road again sometime soon. Taping up the ends of the cross shaft so that they don't get painted with the rest of the cross shaft, so it's just more preparation, getting ready to paint. Okay, all masked up. I'm applying a primer right now, and I think it's a duplicate color primer that I'm using. And that just hopefully gives a better chance for the final paint to stick better to the metal. So I did a couple coats of primer on both sides, and that got it set up for painting. And what you're seeing here is just the process of priming it. Give that a second to dry, or a minute or two, and then we'll flip it over. Found a use for the old sleeves from the cross shaft. I'm using it to support the cross shaft in the air so that I can paint the other side while the first side that I painted gets an opportunity to dry. So nice to reuse those old parts for something different. Could be using that on these things. See how it looks. Finally made it to doing the final coat in color on this cross shaft, so looking forward to seeing how that turns out. Yep, this is pretty much turning out the type of color that I was looking for. It's like a cast iron look, and it's the same color that I'm doing the differential housing cover as well. I ended up doing 2 complete coats of paint on this cross shaft. Finally moving on to the lower control arm, and it's been a long time waiting to get to this stage. So if you can recall in the other videos, the process of getting this off the Corvette, getting it all degreased, cleaned up, and then finally getting it down to the bare metal, it's pretty satisfying to be able to be at a stage where you can apply some primer and then apply some paint later on and get this thing restored as close as possible within a reasonable time frame and a reasonable budget to make it look way better than it was before. So in my mind, I'm envisioning the complete underside of the C3 looking clean, grease free, new or refurbished parts to look brand new, and someday it's going to get there, and we're well on target and on track to getting this thing done. So I like to approach these as projects and give myself milestones and target dates to get things done as much as possible. Of course, sometimes life gets in the way and you have to proceed and do some other more important things. Definitely having a project with milestones and staying committed to that as much as possible certainly helps things move ahead. And those are some of the tools that I use to make sure that I actually can get this work done, because it is a significant amount of work and you can get lost with multiple projects on the go. So If you want to do this type of stuff, and if you like doing this type of stuff and you want to see good results, then you have to stick to a plan and be committed and make it happen, or it's not going to happen. And I know the majority of viewers out here are already very established and very capable of doing this. I'm just sharing some of the things that help me as a guy that's trying to get this done actually get it done. More primer on the inside. You know, it's interesting to me. I love driving these C3 Corvettes, and that is by far my preference. But I also like the restoration process as well. There's a lot of heavy duty mechanical type of stuff that you need to do, and there's also some more finesse type of stuff that you have to do as well, especially when it comes to doing the restoration part. Once you have the parts off, which can be, you know, fairly labor intensive, then you get to do some more artistic, creative type of stuff to bring these things back to more or less brand new looking. Also, when it comes to, you know, once this is painted and good to go, it's putting the bushings back on. That's not necessarily an easy process as well. You have to have patience and a few special tools to get that done. So once again, you're back into the kind of heavy body mechanical type of stuff as well. So you have to be able to balance what you enjoy. You know, this may not be my most favorite part of what I'm doing, but it's still a part that is important. I much more prefer to have everything done and driving it. I also like the heavy duty mechanical stuff, and part of that package is also doing this more creative, artistic type of work to get things looking more or less brand new. So you get the entire package when you decide to restore one of these older C3 Corvettes. I'm going to be using the same product on this as I've used on other ones. So I finally get to start the painting process, and I had lots of ideas on where I wanted to go with this. Ideally, yeah, maybe get it powder coated or whatnot. So my driving intention with this, once things are done, is I don't have any intention on driving this Corvette in the rain or any inclement weather. I just want to drive it on dry, fair weather days with no rain, obviously no snow. So I don't have any plans on this Corvette ever going out in bad weather. So in the future, if I decide that I want to powder coat this, then it's going to be a pretty simple process of removing these control arms again, getting them stripped down, and then either doing the powder coating myself or sending it in to get powder coated. There is another product that you can use, and it's called POR 15, which means paint on rust. It's a black color, very effective paint to use on things like control arms and frames of vehicles as well. It's got a great reputation. It's highly permanent, I would say, once you have it on. So I am going to be using that on parts of the frame, but I decided not to use it on the control arms because I find it a little bit of a heavier type of paint, and I wanted these to stay very smooth and pristine looking with no paintbrush marks or anything like that. So from an aesthetics point of view, I wanted these control arms to look relatively clean, light looking as much as possible, and just fresh and ready to go. And I thought with the POR 15 it was going to look a little bit of a heavy duty paint job on that, but that stuff is excellent, and I will be putting it on my frame for sure. Let's do this side now. For the control arm, I ended up doing 2 complete coats, maybe a little bit more than 2 complete coats for the top and the bottom of the control arm. And then after that, I thought it had a pretty good coating on it and was ready to get the bushings and all the other hardware installed back on this control arm. I'm just doing the final coat on the underside of this control arm, and that completes the painting process that I wanted to do on the control arm and also the cross shaft. So happy to get this done and happy to move ahead on to the next process. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I really appreciate your support. If you like these type of videos, please consider hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and sharing with friends and other people that could be interested in this type of restoration project, particularly on C3 Corvettes, because it's great to have this information out there on YouTube so people can see how to do this for themselves and consider doing it if they want to do that. So once again, thanks so much for your support. Make sure you look for part 4 of this video, which includes the installation of the bushings on the control arm, including the cross shaft, plus the ball joint, plus the control arm bumpers. That video is coming very, very soon, and we'll see you then.